Welcome everybody to the talk today, Cybersecurity Early Career Professionals Monthly Webinar and Networking Series. Today is the August talk, Cybersecurity Beyond Classical IT, and Nacho is talking about cybersecurity experience in automotive and banking sectors. Over to you, Nacho. You can take on from there.
Okay. So thank you, Dipti, first of all for giving me the opportunity to speak here. And yeah, a little bit of background about myself. So before I go into the topic, so first of all, the talk is going to be divided into two sections. So first of all, I'm going to talk about automotive, and the second part, I'm going to talk a little more about the banking sector. So as an academic background, so I did a bachelor in digital forensics and cybersecurity with Dipti on the call. So that's the reason I know her. So at London Metropolitan University, a very good bachelor if anyone wants to start in cybersecurity. Then I did an MSc at UCL on information security, and my dissertation was the drives of UK frames in cybersecurity and a strategic approach. What is the drives for investments for managers in cybersecurity? And now I'm PhD candidate at Lloyds Manufacturing Group in the Cybersecurity Center, where my research topic is cybersecurity in smart vehicles or connected vehicles, whatever you want to call it. And professional background, so before working on Lloyds Banking Group, I was the senior cybersecurity engineer in the Department of Electrical, Electronic and Software Engineering at Jaguar Land Rover, where we were working in the development of intelligence vehicles, and I was working on the cybersecurity. And now I'm a cyber risk manager at commercial banking on Lloyds Banking Group. So to start my talk, I'm going to talk about the case of cybersecurity in the automotive sector. So first of all, what the name of this talk? Why is this different from classical IT? So the biggest thing about cybersecurity in vehicles is we have a very different constraints compared with normal IT. So in terms of like we have safety considerations to take into account. So for example, it's a vehicle which is in movement. You have like occupants. You need to think about the road safety or the road users. Then obviously another big constraint with vehicles is we have limited computational power. So it's not a laptop. You can have the latest graphic card, the latest processor. No, we need to think about weight and space. It's very limited, the space that we have, and it's very limited also the weight. As the lighter is the car, the better is in performance and everything. And then obviously vehicles are a little bit different between classical IT because you have also there's very special networks on it, and you have closed systems, you have open systems, the part that are more regard to connectivity, so Bluetooth, or you're talking about diagnostics and those kind of things. Those are more like open systems, and then you have closed systems, which could be internal circuits of the cars. And then obviously there's new technologies that it comes into place on the automotive. So the automotive is advancing a lot. I will talk that in the next slide. And now cybersecurity is a must in automotive, and regulatory bodies and just the technology also requires cybersecurity. So why cybersecurity in cars, and what are the heterogeneity of the components? So cybersecurity in vehicles is very special. It's very similar to aeronautical cybersecurity. So on airplanes and everything, but because airplane cybersecurity is not very common and you don't see many rules or many talks about it, I'm just going to explain a bit what are the special things about cars. So in cars, you have these things called electrical control units, which are essentially small brains that control actuators and sensors, and that do like an action. Or action like taking data or moving something. So it's very different from classical IT. That's the reason we cannot put normal controls, because those systems do actions. And for example, if you can see on the images how has been changing the cars from a car that used to be like early 2000, they were quite complex by then. The cars will have tons of ECUs all around the car that do very different things, from lighting to closed doors to just the air conditioning. And then we have done a transition between the last 10, 20 years to a more ECU-centric vehicle. So we have these electrical control units all over the car. And nowadays, cars have 150, 100 ECUs per car. The more complex the car, the more luxury it is, the more ECUs it has, because the more features it has. And now, because we have exponentially include the number of ECUs, putting new features and everything on cars. They have now changed to a more software-centric ECU model, so it is much more easy for controlling and for again in terms of like weight and size and everything. So this may sound a little bit like Chinese, but no, it's something that we do. And the reason I was telling this about ECUs and everything is because it gets to the new technology. So ECUs are enabled to have new technology on cars. So there is brand new technology coming. Well, you could see in with a lot of road cars at the moment. So we have internal vehicle communications. So for example, Bluetooth on cars. Probably everyone has seen Bluetooth on cars, or you have to have internal Wi-Fi on cars if you put an SD and an AC car in your car and everything. You also have other type of new applications that you use to manage the car. So for example, you can just turn on the air conditioning, you can lock and unlock the vehicle, you can even remote park assist the vehicle by the application. And yeah, this is obviously is very new technology, and this new technology will create problems. So I will mention afterwards. We have also vehicle communication, so communication between vehicles, communication between the vehicles and the manufacturer. If there's like any type of issue in the software or in the hardware or the physical parts of the vehicle. Also, we have now new systems like keyless entry systems. So it could be like by putting your key fob on the pocket, or just by simple biometrics, or like using a card, or just maybe Face ID. There's a lot of new things coming into play. Now we have new type of HMI technology. So now newer cars are using, for example, this type. I put an image of a smart mirror. They're using cameras instead of using a physical mirror, and that obviously is new technology, but also have the possibility to be hacked. So it's something that we need to look in the terms of cybersecurity. And then the biggest change, I think, is in the terms of over-the-air update and diagnostics. This doesn't give, normally the press and everything doesn't talk about a lot about that, but the capacity of being able to remotely put new software or run diagnostics of vehicles is a game changer. And that helps a lot to the next thing, which is autonomous vehicles, which is a collection of a little bit of everything. And yeah, autonomous vehicles is a very big topic, and I'm not going to expand much, but if people have questions, I'm more than happy to answer. So obviously new technology is very good, but we, the cybersecurity people, see new technology as new issues, new threats, and new, in this case, in the vehicle space, new hazards. So in terms of like, well, all of these like enablers technology, it could allow people to hack in vehicles, like remote controlling, tampering the information. If you steer right, it will go left. And yeah, disable features. So now again, if we have this type of things like smart mirrors or all those kind of things, if you disable that, you cannot see through the mirrors because there's no physical thing anymore. It's just a camera. Then we have obviously GDPR and privacy breaches. So now people put more information on their vehicles. You can put accounts, you can put your details, you can put your address. It will tell you where your GPS location and everything, and all of that is personal identification information, and all of that needs to be taken care of in terms of GDPR and everything. Then obviously the physical security of the vehicle and the occupants and the content. So we're talking about keyless entry and keyless systems of entering a vehicle. Obviously that propose a threat for the people in the vehicle, and also in terms of like physical security. So you have components, so you're assuming that components are not tampered physically. So and the entry of the vehicle is compromised. So all of that assumptions cannot be sustained. So yeah, and then obviously hazards to the rest of the road users by malfunction of any type of thing of the vehicle. It could be the brakes, it could be the steering. And now with a lot of function that they're using by wire. So by wire function is like they're substituting physical parts of the vehicle to reduce weight, and they just put in a wire. So for example, the steering by wire, instead of using a shaft and using a metal thing that will, when you steer, it will steer and then will steer the wheels. You just use a cable. It's much faster reaction. You can also customize to have more or less angle of steering. But also, again, in security side, it's very good for technology, but in security side, that could be hackable. And that's potentially a big threat. Yeah, and all of that was speaking may sound like science fiction, but actually it's something that's happened. So there was a couple of very famous attacks. One of them was Miller-Balsec. It's quite trending, that one. It's quite easy to find information about it. So I didn't want to put it over here because it's the attack that everyone knows. So instead of that, I found this attack from Ken Security Lab, which is a lab, I think, based in China. So what it did in this attack, it was very interesting. So they took a brand standard Tesla Model S and they start playing with it, and they were able to remotely hack the car. They were able to remotely break the car, but they were able to remotely fold the mirrors, so like physical mirrors, and then you cannot see anything. Opens the car, disable the infotainment, and if you are not aware, there's an image on the screen. Tesla cars, they are very dependable on the infotainment screen. It's where you do most of the things of the car. I put a link of a video of the hack. It's very, very frightening for people because most of these things and most of research paper, they talk about hacking in vehicles, but this will take you to the real world, and you will see how this stuff. This is 2016, but it's a very good video. There's more recent hacks, so feel free to look at those. But this one is quite simple, and you will see it how they click on brake and the car brakes and all those kind of things. So yeah, that takes me to the last thing that I was going to mention in terms of cars. So it's a little bit about my research. So I mentioned that I'm doing a PhD on cybersecurity, on smart vehicles or connected vehicles. So what I'm doing in this research, I'm looking at, first of all, the application and standardization of cybersecurity in the automotive industry. So obviously cars are very different. There are very different specs, and they're very different like complexity on it. There could be very top-end cars, Bentleys, top-end Mercedes with all the technology and everything, and then you have more basic cars with less technology. So if the regulator asks for this level of security, maybe it's not possible to those low-end vehicles to have that security, or the other way around. If you ask for the meaning for the low, if you ask for cybersecurity just for the low-level vehicles, then what happened with the more complex one, and the ones have like more expensive features, and the one that do like more automated things. So that's something that needs to be taken into account. And yeah, all the process of the life cycle of the security of the vehicle. Then another thing that I'm looking is the new challenges with introduction of vehicle-to-vehicle communication and vehicle-to-X, which is X could be infrastructure, it could be network, it could be a connection to the smart city. So how will fit all with the vision of a smart city, where you will have electric grid, you will be connected to your house, how everything will work together in terms of cybersecurity. And then I think one of the most key points and the thing that are currently more lacking in the industry, which is the maintaining of cybersecurity in the life cycle of the product. When I say life cycle, it's not just the development of a car. I'm talking about 7 years after the car is sold. So we have a car which is, let's put, have some level of autonomous driving. So you can have level 3, for example, which will do a number of functions, even though the driver's over there, there's a steering wheel. So how are we going to maintain the cybersecurity if that product is sold? How are we going to do it in 10 years' time? So a car is not like software. You can just automatically update it, or you can just say, well, this, I'm not going to support anymore this. A car is a very expensive thing, and you can just throw it away. It's as part of the ESG agenda and thinking about all of that. So I think this is my first stop to ask for people for their thoughts in car security or automotive security, and if they have any question, because I have not dived a lot into detail because I'm conscious of the time. So it's more like the ball to you guys to ask for anything. I could explain a little more, or if you have any questions, concerns. So feel free to speak now. By the way, I don't see the chat, so if someone is writing something in the chat, can someone...
No, there's something it says, can you click where it says hide the Zoom notification? Okay. Perhaps it's you, because I think something is covering some contents. We will share the slides, and also the recording of this and slides will be available on the BCS site. I think you will get an email about it. So please ask if you have any questions. Hello, Prashant and Pedro. There are a few people joining in, but at the moment we are interested in some questions from this just a couple of
Question,
minutes on that.
thoughts, or anything related to automotive security. I can dive more into that topic if you want to, or just questions generally about it. Any thoughts? What do you think about cybersecurity and automotive? Is this just thinking too much about it, or is this a reality threat for the people? Just
Perhaps we can move on, Nacho,
yeah,
and
at
then
the
we
end.
can have, yeah.
So think about your questions and you can put it on chat or ask it at the end. So that takes me to my second part of the talk, which is cybersecurity in the banking sector. So here I'm gonna talk about the challenges that companies face. So I work in the banking industry in the commercial side. So in the commercial side, we don't just do cybersecurity for the bank, but cybersecurity on cards, cybersecurity on all those kind of things. So we work with the clients in all the sectors. So we have clients of all sizes. So we can have councils, we can have non-profit organizations, we can have big universities, we can have big supermarkets. So there's all type of companies, and companies in generally, so they have common issues. So what I'm trying to here show is the common challenges that normally company face in terms of cybersecurity. So one of the bigger challenges that companies face in terms of cybersecurity, and I see very often, is in terms of both preventive and protective measures. So in terms of preventive, so there's a lot of challenges for companies to see what type of controls to invest, where to invest in cybersecurity. Because again, for very big organizations, you have departments, you have very big security contracts with companies or with auditors or whatever, and then you have those type of services. But for maybe SMEs or even micro companies or councils or companies that also have departments of security, it's very difficult to see where to invest cybersecurity and then how to find that security cost ratio. So how to get to that equilibrium point I'm showing on this graph, how to get that close to that is worth the money of investing, that you're getting enough security. And then one of the main things, so after a lot of companies invest in cybersecurity, there's a big thing about maintaining the security than the security level. So this will involve patching, looking at zero-day vulnerabilities, looking at new threats, because obviously cybersecurity is moving every single day. Threats are coming, and threats are not waiting for you to update your systems or to have new security controls. So you need to be able to invest money, invest time, and invest resources in having that latest security and having that good defense in place. So protecting against, we have over there malware, phishing, spear phishing, man-in-the-middle attack, ransomware, advanced ATPs or advanced persistent threats is one of the most common things. And that's taking me to the second part, or where normally companies face problems, which is like post-incident measure. So this will involve what to do when you have a cybersecurity incident. So this could be like how I can get my business back online, how I can get my business back to working. So for example, if you have a manufacturing company, what happens if your manufacturing line or your robots stop? What to do? How are you gonna, who you're gonna call? What are you gonna do in general? Are you gonna get new robots? Are you gonna call them? The supplier has provided your robots, saying, well, the robots are not working. Are you gonna, how are you gonna get that manufacturing line working again? The same happens if you have a small e-commerce site. So if you are selling shoes, for example, and you have your online shop, and you have your trusted customer base where you normally sell the new shoes and everything. What happens if you get taken down? How are you going to get it back online? How are you going to communicate with those customers? And then what type of services you're going to need in the terms of an incident? So are you going to need forensic services? Are you going to need like any type of regulatory? Are you going to need legal advice because you have any type of GDPR issue? What are you going to need? And then obviously you need to if you have any type of incident, sometimes you need to go to the regulatory bodies and see if you don't have any fine. Are you going to prepare for that fine? And all of that also covers a little bit what is your liquidity plan. So in the moment that you have an incident, cash is running out because you start spending a lot of money. You start spending to have another site and maybe hiring another building just to have your workers over there just to continue working. Because what happens if you cannot access your building anymore? Because the authentication systems, the ID cards doesn't work. So yeah, well, you start spending a lot of money, so you need to have a reserve of cash to prepare for that. And yeah, analysis, optimization of the process. Again, planning a business continuity plan, a disaster recovery plan, thinking about the risk management, how you're gonna prepare your backup systems and everything. So that's very important. It's something that there's a lot of lacking in companies, especially on very small companies, SMEs. So, and the paper that we published recently was about the severity of cyber breaches in SMEs companies, and it shows like 6 months after an SME has been suffered a cyber breach, they have been eliminated or taken down. So they are gone. So they are not able to recover from that incident because you start spending a lot of cash and a lot of income, and also this show like the need of cyber insurance. So it's not that I'm still selling cyber insurance or stuff like that, but cyber insurance gives you a backup option in terms of having all of those type of resources, because you have over there a company which is having prepared with the forensics, with the legal services, with backup, with software people, and all those kind of things that could help you and could tell you to your company to continue working. And then what we do. So all of this is very good about what we do in terms of cybersecurity in the client space. So cybersecurity at the moment we have embedded on the credit process, credit risk process. So before we lend them money to a client, we assess their cyber risk score. And for this cyber risk score, we take a number of factors into place. So a little bit similar as the image that you can see. So we look at what is this company doing, how is good compared with their peers, how good is their patching, how good is what type of services they provide. So if you have online payment processors, so if you have a smart manufacturing system, if you have offshore facilities, all of that. And then also we look at what are your human capital risk. So if you have any type of insider risk, if you have very big organizations, and then sometimes we look at liquidity plans and possible cyber insurance or other type of business continuity options as a result of this risk assessment. So we profile the companies and we compare sometimes between sectors. We do sector comparison. So for example, we're talking about supermarkets, so Tesco, Sainsbury, Lidl, Aldi, and we put all those together and we say, okay, Aldi is our client, for example, in this case. So we look and say, okay, compared with the top leading supermarkets, you are lacking a lot behind. Why is that? Why, if you have a similar company, why you're not doing the same? Why you're not leading in this area? And then obviously, so all of this is the preemptive stage that we were mentioning, and then the post-incident one. So we have all the client engagement in incidents. So we help clients to recover their businesses, or we help them to maintain those essential services that they have with the banks. So for example, if you have a cyber incident and you lost your employee list or your financial details, and then you don't know how many employees you have, what are their account details, it's the end of the month, how are you going to pay your employees? So we have a record of all of that. We can make payments for you for suppliers, for third-party suppliers, and then making sure that site is all covered. So yes, it's one of the things that we do as part of the business banking with clients. And then I was going to mention an example again from back 2017. It's a very old example, but it's very clear and it shows very good what is the point I'm speaking about. So Maersk, which is a very big company that do carry the seaborne freight around the world and everything. So they have a very big logistic issue with NotPetya malware. So NotPetya malware was targeting Ukraine companies, end up infecting Maersk. And what happened? It just destroyed all the information that was Microsoft based, so Office 365 and all those kind of things, Word, document, Excel, and all those kind of things. So what happened to them is like they were forced in a lot of cases to come back to paper to be able to see what is in those containers, what was on those ships, what was those ships like, what's going around the world, was that content, because obviously you need to pass through customs and everything. And if you don't know what is in those containers, and you only have one container, you have millions of containers all around the world, how are you going to cope with all of that? So it was a big issue with Maersk. Obviously, the impact it was later shown, I think it was around 300 million, something like that, just this malware. And yeah, the CTO mentioned that for them, they have all this is a very big company. They have a lot of like disaster recovery plans, everything, but they didn't have into account a global destruction of everything. So they didn't prepare for actually destructive malware. So this shows that even the very top companies have this type of issue. And this takes me to the next point. What are the topics that company needs to look at now in the future? So again, the point number one is the one I was mentioning about destructive attack for businesses. And in this case, well, not in this case of Maersk, in this case, like nowadays, it's ransomware. We have a huge spike on ransomware attacks for clients. We used to have like very few per month, and now we have like 3, 4, 5 per week. And we're talking about big clients, big organizations, counties, universities, all of that having ransomwares, and they are not able to continue with these businesses and everything. Then there's obviously a new focus on national critical infrastructure as part of cyber warfare between nations. So Israel, Iran, Iraq, China, US. There are now a lot of targeting national critical infrastructure because the impact is huge in the country. So it means, like, for example, Colonial Pipeline was a national critical infrastructure attack, even though it was not targeted originally from Colonial Pipeline, as the attacker group mentioned later on. But I mean, the impact was huge. The whole US was taken down. Well, the whole east part of the US was taken down, and I had to start filling out petrol cans and everything. That shows that there's a need of protecting national critical infrastructure. And it's been used a lot as part of cyber warfare, especially Eastern countries, as I mentioned. And then there's a big problem now with SMEs. So SMEs get in the middle of the fire, if there's a correct phrase, as part of the supply chain for big companies. So sometimes attackers, they want to get to that big company. So what they will go for the supply chain, try to get access to that company. But then in the middle, they will destroy that supply chain. In this case, sometimes it could be SMEs. And SMEs, as I mentioned before, most of them, they cannot cope with a big attack or a nation-state attack. And they end up not be able to recover 6 months afterwards, as I show on the paper, which the link is over there. So yeah, it's something that SMEs need to take into account. Not only that they are going to target them, is they're going to target them to get to X, which is their supplier or the second, third party supplier. Then vulnerabilities in industrial control systems and SCADA, and then industrial instrument for things. So as I mentioned, and it's a little bit similar to the automotive, there's now new vulnerabilities out there, and this fits a little bit to the national critical infrastructure. So there's now a lot of those embedded devices and embedded systems that are controlled by SCADA, ICS, and everything. And all of that are not secure. They have put a lot of technology in it to control it and to be able to not use human resources and be able to use AI or whatever to maintain it. But there's a big risk on it associated to there's the threat risk. So if someone attack it or is just get site attacked by another malware, they are able to recover that, and it's a very big issue at the moment. And then there's the issue about quantum computing. So in the moment that we have quantum computing, how we're gonna change the whole industry. So all the IT industry, cybersecurity industry, everything's gonna change. So just only one example, quantum cryptography. How we're gonna change all the current cryptography that we're using and we're relying on. How we're gonna change to quantum cryptography. How we're gonna it's just everything's going to change. So and then nowadays, especially now with the COVID days, so we have a lot of resilience in cloud computing. So obviously resilience and concentration on cloud computing obviously create a concentration risk, which is people now targeting cloud computing. AWS, they are targeting all those type of things. And obviously attacking cloud computing now is much more effective at attacking like physical locations and everything, because all companies are relying now on cloud computing. And then obviously the rise of AI and machine learning, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. So it's used a lot. So for example, in banking, it's very common AI. So for every time you make a payment, that payment is cross-checked by a AI machine to make sure that details are correct, website is correct, the amount is correct, everything makes sense. So obviously we have a lot of AI. AI is also a lot used in fraud, trying to prevent fraud for payments. So that's on the banking side. But if you look at big data or how to on smart manufacturing systems, AI is key. And then that's the link for the paper that I was mentioning. And I think that takes me to the end of the call. So again, it's back to you. So these are my details to contact me, and I'll also include the reference if you want to find any type of imagery that I was using or any type of content that I was using in the slides. It's over there. So yeah, it's now up to you guys to ask any questions or what are your thoughts on the topics. Like, I have not dived a lot into detail because I only have half an hour, but yeah, this could be a 3-hour talk, and I could be talking about cars and I'm talking about impact on companies and everything. So, but yeah, if you have any questions, I can expand a little more. So up to you now.
Thank you very much, Nacho. I think there was a few questions. One starts from one is asking for slides, and we can share that. That's no problem. And somebody asked whether I'm new to cybersecurity. Can a non-IT person work in cybersecurity? I think I can answer that. Actually, it's a good thing that you have some experience in another industry, because you're bringing some new skills to the cybersecurity field. Just familiarize yourself, maybe retrain a bit. And some organizations, they hire without any. I know, for an example, for me, I used to work in the defense, and we took all the disabled soldiers into our fold, and we found it really interesting, and we made use of their skills. We retrained them, but they were already very security conscious, and it was very easy to train. Now, you said you're from banking, and your banking experience, the knowledge in working in the system can be really quite useful than somebody who is not. Nacho, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, so I think I think the point that you were mentioning about IT. So for example, it's not cybersecurity. Is also like, I think there's the myth about that it's all about programming and be able to program all the time. So there's cybersecurity is very wide at the moment. So there's more strategic cybersecurity, there's more applied cybersecurity, there's more framework cybersecurity, policy frame cybersecurity. So you don't have to be like a programmer to be able to do cybersecurity. You don't have to have massive IT background or IT background at all.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they're coming from the risk. And if you understand a little bit about computers and everything, you will get the speed very fast and you will be able to work on that.
Yeah. Thank you.